welcome to the Sporting Chances podcast presented by themeltingpress.com. I'm joined by Colm Booth, Dave Hughes and James McDermott. This is Conor Hayes here, and we're going to do a weekly roundup of all the sports issues this weekend, mostly concentrating on the rugby and the football. So we're going to start with the rugby game at the Lansdowne Road, Ireland versus Italy. So we won 42-10, and Colm Booth, everything's all right again. We're going well. This team is on form. Everything's going grand. Yes? No?
Well, I mean, it was probably the best performance at the Lansdowne Road I've seen in a while. But no, I don't think we're going well. I don't think everything's back on track. If you actually look at the game, Paul O'Connell, I think, came out in the aftermath and said he wasn't happy with the performance. Declan Kidney, much as I'm sort of loath to quote him in this context, he came out and said it was a little better, the performance than what we'd had previously, but it's a million miles from where this Ireland team, considering the pedigree of its players, needs to be going forward.
Right, so what for you are the issues then?
Well, I think the biggest issue, and it was shown most starkly on the pitch, was the selection at scrum half.
That's Conor Murray at scrum half.
That's Conor Murray at scrum half.
And who should be in his place?
Well, I mean, Owen Redden's form over the last 3 months hadn't been brilliant, and when I saw Murray starting in the first game, I hadn't seen a lot of him for Munster, so I kind of said, okay, yeah, give youth its chance. I mean, you brought him into the World Cup, it didn't really work, but I mean, we do need to bring younger players through, and I thought it was a reasonable choice, but the last two games have really disproven.
I thought myself he was very indecisive.
Yeah, he was. He did seem very indecisive, and it's a problem that he seems to have had ever since making his breakthrough. He's slow to rucks. He's indecisive when he gets to the ruck, and that means that the ball the Irish backs are getting is incredibly slow and not something they can do anything meaningful with.
And you were at Lansdowne Road. Did the atmosphere in the crowd sense that as well? Everyone thought he was struggling. I mean, it was.
Well, I mean, the atmosphere. There wasn't an awful lot of it. Unfortunately. I don't know whether it's the Irish rugby crowd or it's the stadium itself. To be honest, I think it's probably a mixture of how the team are playing and just and the early kickoff. But there was absolutely no atmosphere in the stadium.
Even in the second half?
Even in the second half. I mean, there was a sort of a 10-minute period after Owen Redden came on where the team picked up, the tempo of the game picked up and the crowd picked up a little bit.
That was the only period in the championship where Owen Redden and Sexton were on the pitch at the same time. On the pitch at the same time, but as a scrum half out after.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
Sexton picks up in that quick ball so much better than O'Gara did. Playing Murray with Sexton and then O'Gara with Redden was bizarre. It's baffling.
If you look at last season, Ireland's two best performances by a mile were against Australia and against England, and those are the only two games where both Redden and Sexton started at halfback.
What's interesting to me is Redden at one point was seen as the slower passer. He kind of did a step before passing, but it seems now that it's gone full force again. Or has he quickened his pace, or is that skewed? He was always quite quick, and it was just I think people were looking for perfection.
And see, in the context of Irish passers, Peter Stringer always had incredibly quick service. But once you got beyond that, Owen Redden had the best mix of an ability to make a break, up the tempo and pass. I mean, Isaac Boss has been accused of having a slow pass, but I mean, what Murray's been bringing to the table recently seems to have taken that to another level. And
the physicality argument for Murray, which a lot of his supporters, although there's very few of them left now, but a lot of supporters did before.
I mean, it was kind of why we persisted with Tomás O'Leary, or seemed to be why we persisted with him for so long at scrum half as well. And whereas it's brilliant to have a scrum half who is physical, who's able to sweep up tackles, able to rough it up with the forwards if that's required. The bread and butter has to be getting your team playing. And if the scrum half is not only not doing that, but is actively working against the team, getting any kind of rhythm, then I just can't see how you can justify selection.
Moving on from that, we're looking at the issue of the 6-7-8. George Hook's Bet Noir, this kind of idea. We need a proper seven. We need an international. We need an international seven. Is that still the case? Or, I mean, our back row to me didn't seem like it worked particularly well. He seems to be in a rut.
Yeah, well, no, and Sean O'Brien as well. It really hasn't, it seems to be a classic case of second season syndrome. He's playing well, but nothing like the the level he was playing at previously.
Could be that it's been figured out to a certain extent as well.
Perhaps, but you'd have to think by the tail end of last season, teams would have figured him out similarly.
Well, Wales, the World Cup.
Wales at the World
that
Cup.
It could have been figured out. At least Gatlin might have.
I mean, yeah, that's certainly
it's
certainly a perspective. But I think certainly a difference that I've noticed, or I've attributed to his performances, that his handling seems to have regressed. He that last year he was picking balls off his shoelaces, keeping them in hand and maintaining the momentum he'd had coming in when he's running off the scrum half or running off and picking up offloads.
So who do we think then? Who's at 6, who's at 7, who's at 8? Your ideal team?
Well, I think 6 Ferris, 7 O'Brien and 8 Heaslip. I think that's the ideal.
Controversial.
I think first of all, Owen Redden coming into the team will bring more out of the 2 Leinster men in the back row. I thought Ferris didn't have a great game in the opening game of the championship, but I thought he was brilliant.
He was very good.
Brilliant yesterday.
What do we think of Paul O'Connell yesterday? Now he's usually overhyped. I admit this myself, and I like the guy.
Can I say one more thing on the point of do we need an out and out 7? I mean, if you look at France, they don't have this out and out fetcher as they call it in the southern hemisphere, and they were the better team in the World Cup final. They'd won it with a strong referee. I think it's a fallacy that Ireland should be looking at bringing in someone else into this back row to play 7, because Peter O'Mahony, who people are talking about, plays blindside for Munster. You've got in the back row, you have Stephen Ferris. He's an astoundingly good player, a lion at blindside. You have Sean O'Brien, who's a European Player of the Year at blindside flanker, and then you have Peter O'Mahony, who's broken into the Munster team this year at blindside flanker. You're comparing like with like, and 2 of them have an excellent pedigree, and hopefully O'Mahony delivers on what the promise he's shown, but I don't think he can justify the selection yet.
We move to the other issue in the team, the big issue that people are talking about. Earls, I thought, actually played well. This was Leinster fans especially, their big worry that Earls was going to be run over. Now, he wasn't facing the best backline. Let's call a spade on that one. But do we think that Earls has justified his selection, first of all, and do we think that he's justified his selection for Paris in a week's time?
I think, look back to that England game last year, which was probably Earl's best game of the year, and he was brought in a full-back. And I think it was one of the decisions Declan Kidney made in selection that I'd really stand behind. I thought was an excellent one, because Kidney identified that England weren't going to kick an awful lot of ball over the top to him, which was one of his weaknesses. So he does bring an awful lot in attack, and as such we were able to utilise what he brought. Similarly, Italy the last day didn't run at the 13 channel, and where his defence is suspect. So what we saw was the fact that he is an excellent finisher.
Just on Italy's performance, it seemed to me you could say that it was a typical Italian performance. Stood up in the first half, very physical, and then completely collapsed in the second half, got tired. But I had a look at the penalty count. It was 12-11. Okay, Italy were in favour, but usually they're twice the number of penalties of the team they're playing. Often they're very. They seem to be getting the ball out wider, and they kicked it less than we did, which I thought was interesting. So, are they trying to change their game, and can they change their game?
Yeah, I think the French coach Brunel has come in to take over from Nick Mallet after the World Cup, and I think you can definitely see a sea change really in how they're trying to play the game. I mean, the game against France, I think they made more offloads than any other team in the opening round of the tournament. Which is you couldn't have envisaged it sort of even 12 or 24 months ago from Italy. And
the final point on Ireland we're looking at is the other bizarre decision. Seems to be the general consensus about O'Callaghan and Ryan. This idea that Ryan is beating him at Munster and that he
and also beating him in his Irish performances.
It does seem kind of baffling, and to be honest, unfortunately, it's probably indicative of both Declan Kidney's selection processes and Eddie O'Sullivan's selection process beforehand. I mean, the incumbent really has to be moved by someone else. And even when it seems to everyone as though that movement has taken place, they're very loath to carry through it on the team sheet.
How's everyone feeling about Gert Small not being around for the rest of the campaign? Axel Foley, in charge of the forwards.
Well, I mean, Small has a very good reputation. There was a lot of worry he was going to go back to South Africa now that they'd even in the head coach position. So I mean, obviously he's very highly rated internationally, but at the same time, Ireland's forward performances haven't been brilliant. So like hopefully Foley can do it, because he did bring a lot to Munster last season.
He's trying to prove himself, take McGann's job as well.
Exactly.
So.
So if we move on to
it's interesting, definitely.
to the next game, which was England v Wales. It was, the BBC were trying to build it up as this kind of and it was very tense and exciting, but it was a poor quality match. There's a little mistake. The last 10 minutes were excellent.
It was sort of typical of an England match.
I thought so, but I thought Scott Williams' try was stunning. I think you don't see the individual brilliance in rugby in that sense. Usually one guy picks the ball, one guy kicks it, and the other guy finishes it. In this try, he picked it, he ran with it, he kicked it, and he scored it. I mean, I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
He did a lot of things.
I thought Wavenad was
more than one.
Yeah. It was Hickey-esque, you know. I mean, you could have seen him coming out with pipes on both arms afterwards.
Kick off towards the try.
Yeah.
It was one team.
And it was an excellent try, a really good finish.
So are Wales the real deal?
Well, I think the biggest indicator of where Wales are at is the fact that they've won their 3 games in the championship so far, and they've done it with a huge injury list. I mean, if you look the opening game against Ireland, I have to say I fancied Ireland for that, because looking at Wales had a second row. For the next game, they had Ryan Jones playing in the second row. He's played most of his career at 6, and I mean they've managed to bring players in to the system, and a bit like Leinster at club level, whoever seems to come in just seems to do well, and the team play in the same way.
So if Wales now they've got Italy and France left, they're going to beat Italy. I mean, I think we can.
Yeah. So it's probably safe enough to us.
Yeah. So we're one game away from Wales doing their 3rd Grand Slam in 7 years. If you compare Wales's achievements to this Irish team's golden generation achievements, it's pretty stark, and it doesn't bode.
Says a lot for Gatland, is what it says.
It says did the IRFU
against the IRFU
make the biggest mistake of the last sort of 15 years of international rugby?
It's Slithery, Steady Eddie.
Steady Eddie and Kidney, and you look, they gave Kidney a 4-year contract again. It's the old.
I can't get my head around.
It's the old George Bush thing, fool me once, shame on you. You can't get fooled again, kind of thing.
I'll never understand the decision to give rugby coaches 4 years before a major tournament.
Yeah, it's like Hitler going into Russia.
A 4-year, a new contract. Qualifying is such an achievement for Irish. But before the World Cup, as a vote of confidence, giving an Irish rugby coach a 4-year contract is baffling.
Yeah, completely.
I mean,
I think there's consensus there. So
especially when you take into account that he's on the back of 2 poor stations campaigns.
Very poor.
And the Grand Slam, if you really analyse it, it was a case of being in a really, really poor.
It was a case of Brian O'Driscoll wanting it.
And also being the least poor team in a poor 6 teams. And you had Trico's individual brilliance.
So if we just take it back to this tournament, we saw France, poor old Scotland lost by less than a score. Again, is Robinson the unluckiest coach in international rugby?
It certainly seems so. I mean, he's managed to change sort of Scotland's game plan. He's got them playing a lot.
Just not enough though.
Yeah, well, he's got them playing a lot more rugby. He's brought in the likes of Greg Laidlaw.
Scored 2 tries.
Yeah, he's Stuart Hogg. He's brought through young players. He's dealt with, like, after the World Cup, I think, certainly off the top of my head, I can name 3 big names: Patterson, Nathan Hines, and now Parks, who've pulled from the squad, who would have been starting players, and they've managed the transition almost very well.
There's something depressing about when Scotland scored a try, where everyone still knew that. There's a minute or 2 at most. And
it's coming. It's coming.
There was no signs of it coming. Like, play had stopped, and Scotland were in ascendancy, and then suddenly we still knew.
Yeah, and going on to probably a team that are a bit less likeable than Scotland, France.
Just a tiny bit.
So next week in Paris, I mean, do we have a hope? We've won there twice in 40 years, so don't look at the history books.
Yeah, definitely not. Or the team sheets. unfortunately.
So we've no chance. Is that the consensus?
Well, I mean, you always have a chance. It's a 2-horse race, similar to Italy had a chance against France and against England.
The difference is that stark.
I think with the way Ireland have been playing,
they only put 6 points. They only beat Scotland by 6 points.
Well, I mean, France. If you look at France's victories over Ireland, there's been a gulf in class, but the gulf on the scoreboard tends not to be huge.
Yeah, that whole routine. Pulling back. Yeah.
And the France away from home as well. The way they don't travel.
Okay, so there's two scenarios here. One, we would have played France 0-1, to use the American expression.
Yeah.
Completely lack of confidence. This scenario, we're 1-1. We've got to win under the belt. Surely it's better to play them this week than it would have been.
Yeah, buddy.
It would have been. Yeah, exactly. It would have been, 2 weeks ago or whenever it was. In the college.
I think it probably is. It's given the Irish team, particularly as the French had to go back to their clubs last weekend and play games, whereas the Ireland team were able to stay in camp. I'd say for this specific game, it's probably worked out better for Ireland.
There was also the doubt about Sexton as well before the game, which was a huge question mark.
Yeah.
So, which hopefully we won't have that going into the next game.
Hopefully.
We have become reliant on Sexton now because it seems that O'Gara just is. He's on the way out at this stage.
Well, yeah, I think he's been on the way out for quite some time.
Right. We're gonna move on from rugby. We're gonna talk about the other code, Association Football. The Irish team, they're playing this week against Czech Republic, and I know it's only a friendly, but I was gonna it's much better that we have a friendly that actually leads on to something than a friendly where we wouldn't be playing a competitive match for 8 months. I mean, that would be incredibly depressing. So we've got to be positive about that. So it's more exciting than they usually would be.
And the Czechs aren't a bad outfit at all, let's be honest.
It's as excited as we could be for a friendly, I think.
I think so.
The pre-Euro friendlies.
Yeah, and this does mean something, doesn't it?
Of course, it has to. We're going into a major tournament.
So Dave Hughes, McLean came in. Finally.
Just about.
But he was followed by Paul Green, who I thought we'd gotten rid of. I thought we'd done something with him. We'd put him back in the box.
Yeah, I thought even when Derby don't even want him, I thought we mightn't want him either.
Is he playing left back?
He's playing right back.
Right back.
Yeah. Since Kilbana's been injured, he's taken over.
McLean was a smoke screen.
I think so.
He's been green in behind that, and we were never supposed to know.
It was a little bit like when you've been told your parent takes you and says we have to go to mass, but you can have chocolate afterwards.
Yeah, I think it might have been even that he asked the FEI to call it Paul Green, and they go, "This isn't going to fly. You're going to have to call him McLean as well." He kind of agreed. But
people do miss the point. We're missing a few players. A lot of injuries. We're missing Clark, who probably would have called up.
Could we have called up maybe Wes Houlihan and Carl Pill?
Did anyone actually expect Wes Houlihan to be called up? That's the thing.
Yeah, I understand keeping faith with the players that have been there, but Paul Green hasn't actually been a consistent feature of the squad.
No.
So really calling him up is no different to calling Wes Houlihan up.
They are very different players. And
I mean, for example, a player of Wes Houlihan's international experience.
I think we've just got to get used to these trapisms. And I am a Trappist. I do like him. I think he's justified. He's justified what he's done. Once you get to a tournament with this country, this team,
completely. We're a limited bunch of players. Let's be honest.
Players. More Premier League players.
Speaking of the limited bunch that is there, some good signs at the weekend. Kevin Doyle scoring goals.
Completely. He was very good against Newcastle as well. This first half, he sort of played a lone striker, no one supported him, but he still gave himself a very good chance in the first minute. But once Wolves pushed up a bit, he was fantastic. Linked up play really well. Got his goal, deserved it, and now he looks the confidence going into Wednesday, which is
the big issue. Of course, because basically if Keane and Doyle are fit, no matter what their form is, they're going to play.
Of course.
So Doyle has to be in form, otherwise we're done. So
and
that's
Keane,
why it is important.
Keane yesterday was a poor game against Wigan, but Keane was still providing that spark. Linkman, he was great. He was fantastic, and he's really. No one really expected huge things from him this year with Villa after last year with West Ham. He's really is now looking like a big loss for Villa going back to LA.
He is, but I'm not sure that Trapp will ever allow him to play that role that he does for Villa.
No,
which I think is his best role. Even in his years at Spurs, that was he really showed.
But Berbatov, he was great.
Player, and earned that big move to Liverpool,
which went so well. He's had a few big moves and they've gone.
Liverpool could do with them.
At the moment, it's a pretty big move. We will get onto that. So Andrews scoring again.
It's great because Andrews has been very hard to deal with at Blackburn because supposedly the fans getting on his back, all this sort of stuff.
They do like getting on people's back.
They seem to,
It's keen in.
Strange, it's a strange phenomenon. But no, he had a great loan move at Ipswich. He got, I think it was 9 goals in 15 games, which is phenomenal for. He isn't seen.
A midfielder in a poor team.
Exactly. For Ipswich, who really struggled. No, he's definitely not renowned. Exactly. He was seen as a kind of holding midfielder at MK Dons originally, and now he's proved himself. He's a goal scorer. He can score goals, which is something which we haven't really got.
Yeah. I know I say it every time, but I do like to say it. That move from when Ince goes from MK Dons to Blackburn and brings Keith Andrews with him. It's championship manager all over. It's brilliant.
It was a 15-year-old sitting at home with his laptop. Two rolling promotions. I'll bring the guy to the Premiership.
Hasn't it worked though? Keith Andrews is a Premier League footballer now.
And qualified success.
Did the transfer work? I mean, you were after saying yourselves Blackburn wanting out.
Well, I'm going to say
we went through some very poor form.
Yes,
let's not kid ourselves.
But Andrews stood out at that level. He really did, and he was the MK Dons.
No doubt.
He was always going to go to a championship club.
I'd have brought my favourite player along, the one who stood out as well. If I got the big money up 2 divisions, I'd have gone, hey, I've been money in transfer Katie.
Managers do that. Managers always look at Newcastle's case. They took Graham Souness, had Craig Moore, because he obviously didn't play, but Pally with him, seeing him as this little kind of dressing room conformate. Then he had Celtics, I should say, Gordon Ciarán took Paul Telfer, who was a very avid footballer, all of a sudden going in from Coventry straight to Champions League playing against Manchester United. So it happens.
I know, moving from Coventry to Celtic is...
It happens.
But at that stage, playing Man United in Champions League,
it happens. There are lots of mirrors of football manager in real life. I'm just saying it's one of those funny quirks.
You're clinging on to it.
But I think Andrews.
I can understand why you said it. I've been there.
It's a super move for Andrews anyway.
Exactly. And it's great that he's getting a game at it. And Brunt is out, which is bad for him, but it's good for Ireland. Yeah,
in more ways than one.
Yeah, exactly. So the one kind of dark cloud on the horizon is the Richard Dunn situation. What's the latest there?
Well, it seems to be mixed reports going out. A lot of an unquote a paper which you might name or may not name, the Star.
So you
had a report, during over the weekend that Dunn was a huge doubt for the year 2012. Yet, as they would do, Aston Villa's physio has come out and said that he's on course to be back within 6 weeks. And Given has apparently come out and said he reckons he'll be back within 6 weeks, and nothing will keep Dunn from playing.
You need to amputate a limb.
I agree. I think Dunn will have to be
after all he did to get us there. I think.
Having said that, I'm not sure if I want to semi-fit Dunn.
I still want semi.
Semi meaning
for Ireland.
Then
80% up.
Maybe. OD turns like the Titanic.
He really does.
Yeah,
I think St. Ledger plays so much better. Even with
I think it's like having O'Driscoll playing at the last World Cup. He was half the player, in terms of his actual physical impact on the pitch. Okay. But as a talisman,
But we look at St. Ledger Dunn. There's a huge.
There's a bit of a partnership there. I mean,
he knows exactly where they're playing. St. Ledger is poor for Ireland, and he hasn't played it often, but it's so much more comfortable.
Dunn makes him look better as well. Yeah,
so much because Dunn's clever. Dunn's a clever footballer.
There's nothing to be said about the other centre halves on the rise. Your Duffys, your Clarks,
Duffy, but they're still very young. Duffy's just back from a loan with Scunthorpe. Let's be honest. Scunthorpe are a League One club who they're not exactly the most. They're not.
He was playing regularly in League One club. Whereas Sean Ledger, he's done brilliantly in Ireland jersey. I don't want him replaced. What I'm saying is he's not playing weekend.
He is now. He's back in the team. He's back in the team. So Bama went to that Nations Cup. He went away for the month, and the whole of January, St. Ledger's been playing. He scored last week in the FA Cup. He's getting a good regular game. And if he's playing, Leicester are improving there. Leicester should have been a top of the table team, but they're improving.
They hired Sven-Goran Eriksson.
Exactly. Pearson didn't like him originally, but seems to have really kind of taken a shine to him recently, which can only be good. And Mills, the other centre half, has been kind of off for him, so hopefully they'll keep going.
If we go back to the friendly on Wednesday against the Czech Republic, will there be many debuts? Will there be changes, or will he just go with his?
We know Trapp told us that Seamus Colm will get his debut. I think it was against Norway last year, and of course, never happened.
Yeah.
So he's come out tonight saying that Duffy and McLean will feature at some stage. Whether that will be,
we put an asterisk beside him. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath. But start. I think we'll see a recognised team going out once. Maybe 20 minutes here and there. I can't see him getting more than that though.
So just a final word on domestic football. League of Ireland starts this Friday. My beloved Bows are up in Derry. So this year looks like Rovers are going to walk it again, doesn't it? Really, I mean, they're on telly for the first 5 weeks, which on RT, which kind of tells you that basically the the kind of the profile.
Con Murphy as a hosting.
Con Murphy, he does.
It's not exactly.
So I think. But if we look at what the league is actually producing for the international team, if we bring back to that, it's a good thing here in the paper today. It came out that they've produced 4 players in '88 and 4 in 1990 for the squad, compared with 14 players who were actually UK born. This is in 1990. And now it's 8 players who are UK born in 2012, the likely squad, and it's 7 players who started in the League of Ireland.
Who've
played in the league, which is really fantastic, and it does prove that there is some quality in the league
completely,
and it's very important that it's supported.
Could you tally that with the fact that, I know maybe not the last 2 years, but certainly the 8 years preceding that, in conjunction with everything else economic going on in Ireland, the League of Ireland received a huge injection of cash, and it raised the quality.
Did they receive injection of cash in terms of that they couldn't pay back? Do you mean they?
So they outstretched themselves. Like the rest of our economy. Yes.
Sorry, I thought you were making a point that they got loads of money off the government.
No.
They got loads of money off the Tooth Fairy. Well, it might as well have been. It was. But yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, they're starting now. They're in. McLean has come back. After he's come after he made his debut only a year ago.
That's true.
So and there's other players in the league. So hopefully Enda Stevens has been at Villa a while. I don't know if he's going to get the team.
Suppose he's doing very well in the reserve. Suppose
so let's see what happens with him next season. I think he's a future international.
Connor, is there anyone else on the horizon? I know it's starting to see. But have you got predictions now for this season? Who are we looking out for?
It's tough. Like, I mean, you don't actually. I mean, I would never have said that. Stephen Ward, for example, he was at Bows. I watched him. He was a forward at that point. I'd have never said he'd have made an international week in, week out Premier League football.
Yeah, especially left back.
Whereas Roy O'Donovan, who was scoring week in, week out, I was watching this guy and I was saying, this guy's going to go to the Championship. Maybe
and Dave Mooney as well.
Dave Mooney as well, scoring week in, week out. Yeah. They go over there, it doesn't really work. Doyle, I watched Doyle, watched him maybe half a dozen times, and wasn't that impressed in the League of Ireland. He goes over there and he does well. So that's always a part of the excitement of it. There's going to be a guy who you don't really know, and he's going to come out and he's going to surprise us all. Yeah,
but we look at it now. It's a strange Limerick are now in the first. They've signed
money behind them.
Yeah, they've signed 2 players from CSK in Moscow on loan, which is a strange one.
That is weird.
Very strange. One of them is a Czech international, which is very strange.
Remember that time West Ham signed 2 players on loan?
Yeah. I think Ciarán is involved with Limerick as well now. Yeah.
Neil Warnock was happy with that.
Yeah. The interesting would be who Sly will get as manager now to see
if they can challenge. But I can't see anyone.
There was some talk in the press room it could be Cuban's first, but.
Was it
first role? But
as a player manager?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I can't see it happening.
No, somehow. Right, so if we move on to across the water, as the saying goes, to the PL. We had Arsenal v Spurs. They usually produce a great game, and again, it was no different. It wasn't quite lived up to the hype because Martin Tyler, he can't live up to his hype.
Live.
It was, but you know what? It was live. So is this Wenger's salvation, lads? Is he off the hook? Because it looks like, let's be honest, it looks like he's going to get 4th. The other teams around
him a lot.
Give him at least 2 days anyway.
It buys him a few weeks of loyalty. And if he gets 4th,
I'm sorry, I have to go in there and say, like, the guy shouldn't be on the hook. Look what he's done for the club. He's done for the club. I mean, he took that club. But he in the first half of his tenure, he won them trophies. He put them on the map again. And in the second half of the tenure, he has made them sustainable. He has made them an entity that can compete in and around the top of the game for the foreseeable future.
Their wage budget is 20 million more pounds than Spurs.
Yeah, but okay, but I mean, if you look, investment is not just investment in wages. You have to also be aware of what they're investing in player transfers. If you say their wage budget is 20 million more than Spurs. Look, Spurs have Emmanuel Adebayor playing for them, and he's earning as much as sort of 3 Arsenal players.
Absolutely, but this Wenger thing, Ferguson hasn't spent a lot of money in the last 3 years. I mean, if you look at Ferguson, his net spend is less than Blackpool's, and he's managed to produce title-winning and title-challenging teams.
That
is the standard Wenger wants to be judged by, is it not?
Well, yeah, it's the standard Wenger wants to be judged by. To judge anyone other than Ferguson by Ferguson's standards, I think is unfair because he is the greatest manager certainly the British Isles has ever seen.
If Wenger can find these transfers, right? Why can't he find these bargains in positions where they need to find them?
Centre half.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, he can find these spectacular nuggets.
You have to feel sorry for him as well, and also criticise him for the fact that there seems to be something wrong with the medical staff at Arsenal Football Club, because
there seems to be something wrong with the medical staff of Man United Football Club.
Well, perhaps, but I mean, it's a more long-standing problem for Arsenal.
But is that there's some talk that it's the type of player he buys aren't particularly suited to the English game a lot of the time.
Is it even that, or is it even mentally? I'll give you an example. The African Nations Cup final 2 weeks ago. 2 players missed penalties. Like these Zambian lads who play for Orlando Pirates and the Kaiser Chiefs. I'm not talking about the South African football team, obviously.
Oh my God!
He's an excellent drummer.
Exactly. These guys were stepping up and banging penalties into the top corner, and then Gervinho and Kolo Touré step up. And both of them signed by Wenger, and both of them bottle it. Is there something in that? Does he sign the wrong type of player mentally?
Reading a bit too much into that.
Do we think? Arshavin?
No, I don't see the idea that the type of players he buys aren't suited to the English game. I just wonder at what point along his career in the English game did he forget what kind of players are suited to the English game? Why is it now that he refuses to sign players that fill the gaps that are left behind by the likes of Vieira and Fabregas?
You could argue he inherited
I'm sorry.
He
signed Mikel Arteta to replace Fabregas. I know he said he didn't, but that's what he did.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I mean,
did he have more money?
But I don't think he had more. Okay. I mean, if you look at historically, Arsenal have always said, their directors have come out and said, we have X, Y, and Z to spend. And when it came down to it, Wenger said to them, listen, you're going to have to tell people the truth. And they came out and said Wenger hasn't had money to spend.
Just back to today's game. What did people think about Harry Redknapp's substitutions at halftime?
Very strange.
Absolutely bizarre. Saha and Adebayor were up front, the two of them together. Spurs were outplayed in the first half. Yeah, probably. They had 2 men on the break. So they were causing especially
they were taking up they're giving some Arsenal something to think about.
Yes.
They took him off the hook.
It looked like after what happened in the first 3 minutes that Harry had really actually thought, if we continue to absorb everything Arsenal showed us, we can cause them a hell of a lot of trouble with Saha and Adebayor. And they were causing a lot of trouble.
Is Harry concentrating on another job? Which job would that be? Do we know?
I think
Harry's job. Yeah.
I think the frailties that have always been in Harry's ability as a manager just being scrutinised more now that English managers select.
They haven't been as bad as they were today.
Could be the Limerick job.
This is a North London derby. These things happen.
I think Sky do hype it, but
is it
hype? No way.
Yeah.
Also, you have to remember, Arsenal did have
Neville on his commentary pointed out today. He brought on Sandro to kind of make it almost a 3-man midfield. Sandro was almost the first man forward a lot of the time. And what was he doing?
Why does he wear a gum shield?
That's a strange. So does Gomez as well. It's a Brazilian Spurs thing. But it's.
Yeah, he found himself up there a lot, and he didn't have a clue.
That's not his game.
Yeah,
that's not his game at all.
That was weird.
Right.
But and Van der Vaart was very ineffective as well.
I don't think Van der Vaart.
There's also we can't ignore Arsenal handed in a very good performance today. They were still very, very weak at the back. They were nearly caught 4 or 5 times in the first 25 minutes.
Who's very good, and I've often asked what is the point of him, is Thomas Rosicky. It just proves that every player has the game of his life, and Thomas Rosicky had the game of his life.
I always think of Rosicky as in a team that suited Rosicky.
Exactly, at Dortmund where the team was run around him, it was all...
players like this don't become bad footballers after moving across.
Very talented players had a lot of injury problems.
Injury
problems do scupper footballers.
And he's a great guitarist apparently by all... So Google YouTube it. After you listen to this, YouTube it.
Just finally, the final thing on Arsenal is though, all this Wenger's sustainable model and all that, and they probably will get for it. Looking like at the moment they look good for it. Yeah. But if they lose Van Persie, they're done, aren't they? I mean, they're absolutely, in terms of they lose Van Persie,
they'll buy someone who'll be great in 3 years' time. In theory, that could be the.
I mean, my point is,
if he goes to Annecy,
you don't know who's going to come good next year. I mean, if you'd said Van Persie over the last 6 years has been a sick note.
But he always when he was fit, he was always.
He always scored.
My point is, Wenger is a lot of his players.
No, I'm sorry, but look at Thomas Vermaelen. I mean, he's looked when he's got himself up to full fitness. He's looked like an excellent centre back who can take care of Arsenal's defensive problems. Say next year he has a full season and is that player. I mean, then you've got a solid defence.
I don't think Vermaelen can. I think he's a good defender, but I don't think he's the one who's capable of fixing all the problems.
I think the whole thing depends on if they can get Van Persie in a long-term contract, then they have a chance. If they can't, I honestly believe it comes down to
Van
Persie
Persie
will
must stay
stay
fit though.
Well, yeah, and I know
He has though in recent years.
Yeah, and I know
The recent year.
I know loyalty has very little place in modern football, but you have to say that Wenger took a guy with a bad reputation from Feyenoord, wasn't it?
He was, yeah.
For
Relatively
he got
nothing,
he got him cut price because the guy had such a bad reputation. He's brought him, he's nurtured him as a footballer. He's stuck by him in spite of the fact that the guy has had a lot of injury problems. He's given them a relatively big wage in spite of those injury problems, and now that he's had a really good season, I think I think he really should commit to Arsenal.
I think you overthink the importance loyalty plays in modern day football.
Right. Well, I did. I qualified my statement.
Yeah.
We're going to have to leave it there on Arsenal. If we look at the other manager under pressure, Andrei Villas-Boas, do we think he's unlucky or do we think he's naive?
I think.
Or is he both?
It could be a bit of both. Naivety in terms that the way Chelsea are built around the JTs of this world. Love the Sky phrase, JT.
Yeah.
The JTs of this world.
Yeah,
I really hope there aren't too many.
John Terry and Justin Timberlake. That's all this thing revolves around.
Yeah. John Terry, the Lampards, and he has new philosophy. He wanted to change it overnight. It was never going to happen like that.
But do you think the media have given him? I have to ask this. Do you think the media have given him a rougher ride than anyone else would have gotten, purely because he's gone after the media darling that is Frank Lampard?
Oh yes, definitely.
I don't know.
But also,
Scolari got a very tough time as well, and Scolari had a better success rate, win success rate. And let's be
completely agree.
honest.
Scolari had a much better team, much younger team.
On the face of it, Villas-Boas hasn't done a good job with Chelsea, but I don't think he ever could really do a good job with Chelsea in the time he's been given. He came in to a bunch of players who all had themselves a bigger reputation than he had, and he expected to control them, and that's very hard to do, especially when he had a minor role in their master preparation previously, a few years previous, and now he's suddenly the guy in charge.
He's not Statsman anymore.
And all of these, people say, well, look at things. The guy is a prodigy. He's a manager. He could be a managerial great, but he only had 1 year under his belt, so it's very hard then to expect the likes of the inflated egos of Ashley Cole, John Terry, Lampard, Drogba.
The rumor
those players were never going to listen to what Villas-Boas had to say, especially when it was, as we expected to be, quite radical.
Oh yeah.
So he was trying to implement an entire new system.
But speaking of radical, or lack of basically being radical, Rafa Benitez being
I think that
laughable is the word you're looking for.
Is that the word?
I think that's almost a yes man to Roman Abramovich.
So I think we saw today the fruits of Rafa's plan for Liverpool as they claimed their first.
Yeah, look at Inter Milan doing so well as well. It's all.
But basically, they're going to give Benitez a short-term contract. That's the idea, and then he wants Guardiola. I mean, Guardiola doesn't want to stay in Barca, so there is a possibility there. I couldn't imagine Guardiola working with Abramovich.
I could see him going to Arsenal. Yes, maybe as the way Arsenal said, he kind of likes that way. I can't see my Chelsea ever.
Guardiola still needs money. I mean,
yeah, that's not.
It's not like you go to Arsenal and make work wonders. It's just that they have a footballing culture that's similar.
Look at Alexis
Diet
Sanchez,
Barcelona.
Yeah, he spent money out throughout his time there.
I mean, he spent money throughout his time there. He's brought good players. Have they been completely integral to the success, or have they been contributors?
That's
he's in a
last season I thought was
but he's managing in a system whereby each president wants a marquee signing every year. They want success, but they also want to say this is my signing. But, and as such, he's under pressure to buy a £30 million player
every year.
Yeah. Also, he inherited,
which he would be used to. Which he would be. That would help him at Chelsea. Let's call his
he inherited a squad and an academy that won't be replicated anywhere else in the world. So he's not going to take over another club and say, "Well, I'll have a conveyor belt of players like I have at Barcelona."
I mean, but look at the state Barca were in when he inherited them. They were at.
As we all know, we've all agreed on this before, that the plan, the great Barca plan was in action since Cruyff's time.
It was. It was, but it took a great manager to realise.
I agree with that. Yeah. So, what plan will Guardiola finalise in England? And
Yeah.
what club?
It definitely.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that we'd love to see what he
Yeah.
could do. Everyone wants
Yeah,
to see him
no, oh,
outside.
yes,
everyone,
definitely.
because
That's his comfort zone.
there's
Yeah,
one
it's
extreme view, which is he brings the balls to training, and then
Yeah.
there's another extreme view, which is it's everything. You know, this Guardiola is the tactical genius, and
Yeah.
so I think we can all agree to finish this off that yes, we'd love to see him at another club, and especially
At
in
some
England.
stage, to be honest, I love seeing him at Barcelona.
That's true too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's
I think
Agreed.
I think we've kind of ran out of time, unfortunately. But I'll ask one question, and it's about the Premier League. If Sir Alex Ferguson, manages to win the Premier League this year with the squad that he has, is it his greatest ever achievement? We can be quick on this as you want.
No, the treble.
The treble is still a great achievement.
it has
Dave?
to be. I agree. It has to be the treble.
Treble is achievements to Aberdeen.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
achievements
well,
of
yes.
Aberdeen were in a very different era. I mean,
Yeah, they're still.
Brian
they're still-
Clough won European Cups with Nottingham
and
Forest
that was
as
a
well.
fantastic achievement.
Yeah, no. So
Yeah, it's
you
I
know,
mean, if you think of
you
the
got to
squad
still
that he had-
understand he still did spend money, and I'm as big a Ferguson fan as you'll find. He still did spend money this summer, and last summer. I know the net spend was quite low, especially taking into account he sold Ronaldo.
But the whole
But-
point is you take into account you sell Ronaldo, but you still have to take it into account. Like most
No,
of the
no, I agree.
most of the clubs would be allowed to reinvest that money.
Exactly.
He was.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
And
And
spent
obviously,
last summer
and-
70 million.
No,
No.
but he's buying
and
all
if,
young players.
if he wins it with the group players he has,
with all the injuries,
it'll be a greater achievement than probably any of the Premier League manager at the moment will have to their name. I'm not sure it'll be his greatest achievement.
right.
That's the
treble
measure of the
touchdown.
man.
Yeah.
That's the measure of
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
And finally, we should mention it that Liverpool won their first trophy since 2006 today.
And we'll hear about it for the next 3 years.
Well, they bring an FA Cup.
I
in
would like to
follow.
congratulate Liverpool on just about overcoming a championship side to claim the least
They did.
valuable trophy in English football.
Well, I mean, it's
It's what the most.
It's something Arsenal couldn't
it's
do
what
last
the most
year.
famous club in England should always be looking to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think to be honest though, as harsh as you seem to be on them, I don't think any Liverpool fan is saying this is the dream, this is
No,
the
it's-
revolution.
this
I
is-
think
I was in
most people-
I was in a
after-
pub.
it's
I was in a
yeah.
pub earlier this evening, where I saw people chanting
I mean,
King Kenny
you know,
and
I-
people running down the stairs,
Irish
fist
people,
pumping.
Irish people are alcoholics. There's news for everyone.
Yeah.
But so do we think King Kenny is he on the way, or is he a spoofer at this point?
he was too
at this point in
if,
existence.
if he was anyone else, it's the Dalglish name. Let's be honest. Like, he would have been under so much pressure after some of the result, after all the draws at home. Let's be honest.
I don't know. I think a stick that people tend to beat him with is the signings that have been made by Liverpool Football Club. Damien Commonly was brought in with the specific remit of overseeing transfers recruitment into Liverpool Football Club, and I don't think it's necessarily fair that he seems to bear the brunt of those transfer
I
decisions.
don't know, but he doesn't. Like, people blame Dalglish for Carroll.
I think it's used when people talk about what Dalglish has done wrong. They always mention
They do, yeah. Like, it's very hard to understand why someone would let Morelos go and take Henderson, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But let's bear in mind that if that penalty shootout had gone differently, we'd be now speaking about not
He's the under
King
pressure,
Kenny.
but that's the way of football. Alex Ferguson's legacy
If
would
my
be.
aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
That's the classic.
Yeah.
And if
But-
that isn't a good way to
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. So basically, thanks very much, lads, for coming in.
problem.
David Hughes, Colm Booth, James McDermott,
Thank you.
Alex Flood on sound, and producers Tadhg Prendiville and Ciarán Schutte. And please visit the website, themeltingpress.com, and look for us on Facebook and Twitter. This was the Sporting Chancers podcast, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.